I would like to call the Linn-Mar School Board meeting to order, 5 o'clock in the boardroom. Can you please determine a quorum?
Colts. Here. Eisenberg.
Here.
Lawson.
Here.
Maury.
Here.
Nelson.
Here.
Wall.
Here.
And Weaver.
Here.
Quorum is present at 5 o'clock.
Move to adopt the agenda with the walk-in exhibit.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. First of all, we have a public hearing tonight. This is the opening of a public hearing in regards to the intent to grant an easement to the City of Marion for construction of the Indian Creek Trail project. And so if anyone has comments only about the Indian Creek Trail project, you may step forward at this time. Okay, seeing none, I will now close the public hearing. And we will move on to audience communication. Do you want me to read that first?
Sure.
Okay, all right. At this time, the board invites the public to speak on items related to the agenda or district. The board will receive and acknowledge comments, but will not engage in dialogue with the speaker because of the set agenda for the meeting. Remarks are limited to 3 minutes per speaker. Remarks should not contain names or other identifying information about students, teachers, administrators, or other personnel. Okay, at this time, if you would like to speak about something, you may step forward, sign in, and
So I have a question before I start.
Okay.
I have a little speech prepared, and when I time it, it's a little more than 3 minutes. So I'm wondering if I can have about 5 minutes, or if you want to hear from each one of us for 3 minutes.
we can only do 3 minutes.
So
I'm sorry, Michelle.
3 minutes each. You want everyone to do 3 minutes?
Well, it's whatever works, but we can
Okay.
only do 3 minutes each.
Hope you're ready to listen then. Okay.
Can you please state your name?
Yes, I'm Michelle Hand, and I'm a 13-year volunteer here at Linn-Mar. Been a volunteer coordinator and heavily involved in the school for a long time. Tried to get through some of this information on email, but I didn't really get very far, so a lot of it has to do with dances. The no toga dance that was taken away a couple of years ago was kind of a bummer with no explanation. It was a favorite dance of the kids, and especially freshmen coming in, but they took that away, and we never really got an answer as to why. We have no homecoming court. I don't know if everyone is aware that we don't have a court. I think we're the only school between Iowa City and Waterloo that's not having one. Apparently it's not fair to other groups such as Kings and Queens. I don't know. We could call it homecoming royalty. It doesn't really matter what you call it, but it seems to be a tradition to bring alumni back and go to the game, go to the dance, so forth. I've asked repeatedly who or why made the decisions. Was it unilateral? Did somebody come up with it? Were our kids involved? Was there voting? I haven't really gotten an answer. And I think the worst part about it is there's no outside guests that can come to homecoming. So my daughter won't be going because her boyfriend happens to go to Kennedy. According to Mr. Goodall, it was decided 2 years ago after the 2019 homecoming that was quite large, that there would be no outside guests. Yet we only heard about it around August 29th, something like that. 22nd maybe. So if they knew about it 2 years ago, nobody mentioned it 2 years ago, 1 year ago, or even at the beginning of the school year. So we got kids with dresses and dates, and they're not going to be attending. So that's just kind of sad. The population of this school is not the kids' fault. So I feel like we could become a little bit more creative and find another way to make this happen for the kids. With everything that happened last year, some of them aren't even going to get a homecoming. There's no well, the other thing about the outside guests, if you don't want people to come, this is what's going to happen. If you have an average of 1,500 kids that come to homecoming, that's $12,000 worth of revenue. We don't need $12,000 worth of revenue. My taxes are pretty high, and I donate frequently, but I can only do so much. So I would think that we would want some revenue to come in on that. There's going to be people that won't come. There's no more WPA. I don't really understand that. They say that it is sexist to women. That really blows my mind. I'm sitting here looking at my friend Lindsay that owns a business, and I would think she would probably be pretty happy to be, I'm a female and I'm out there and I'm making money and I'd be happy to pay for dinner. Seems like they're going to call it something else. It's going to be in March. But again, there's no outside guests. I would think if we don't have time to change things for homecoming, we would certainly have time to change things for our winter dance. It's 6 months away. Senior prom, again, only, I know it's a thing of numbers, but as we did last year, we're going to have to make our own senior prom and pay for it and rent a place and do all of that because, again, the juniors are not welcome to go to that. I just think that these kids have been stripped far too much, and we're not helping things by limiting this. Mostly it's the pandemic, but I think the administration is making it worse by succumbing to small minorities of people making drastic unilateral changes. And I guess I'm here to speak up for my kid. The suggestions that I have, and I hear the beeper, is that students, parents, and administration, I believe, should have been in on this. And I just think that our kids,
It is time.
we could do better.
Okay.
So thank
for
you.
your time. We do appreciate it. Is there anyone else who would like to step forward and talk about that topic? If not, please come forward if you do. If you'd state your name, please, we'd appreciate it.
My name is Matt Rollinger. Got a couple kids in this district. I think it's very funny, not funny, ironic maybe, that our last person up here mentioned how she's not getting any information back from anyone here on questions that are asked. I've been saying this for months. I've reached out to principals, I've reached out to superintendents, I've reached out to every single one of you, not a single reply. You are not listening. You are not listening to us. All we want is someone to reply to our questions. I got one reply that said, I sent each of you, I believe it was 6 or 7 questions, and the only reply I got was, our legal department, or our legal counsel, told us not to answer your questions. You need to ask yourselves why. Why should you not answer those questions? These people back here need to know why you were told not to answer those questions. Every one of you know why. Every one. But I'm not going to talk about my questions tonight. I had people ask me questions all over the district. Students, parents, teachers, asking me questions because they're not getting answers from you. I'm just going to read a couple of them. Here's one that is way more important than the discussion of whether you should recommend or encourage masks in your policy. Why are children in the middle schools allowed to be dressed like animals and be led around on leashes by other children? I want every one of you to answer that question. I'm asking it in public, and I want an email. You all have my email. I want that question answered. Here's another one. Why is the administration allowing employees to freely and openly violate rights of special needs students? What is the policy on disciplining employees that violate that law? I want that question answered by all of you. Here's one that really needs to be answered. Do you have legal authority to require any medical procedure or require any medical device on anyone in this district? I want that question answered from each of you. Here's one that should be easy, but blew me away because I had no idea. Why are there classrooms at the high school without an American flag when reciting the Pledge of Allegiance is required by law? Answer that question for me, every one of you. There was a document signed this week that said that Linn-Mar will be following the law. I'm not seeing it on anything. And I know there's going to be a meeting this week, and everybody's chomping at the bit to put a mask mandate back on, but I'm here to tell you, we're not going to comply this time. We are standing up.
Is there anyone else who would like to step forward? Okay. You please sign in and then state your name before you speak.
I am Madison Meyer. I am a junior at Linn-Mar, and I am very upset about the whole people from outside of Linn-Mar can't attend like the school dances. I feel like everybody in Linn-Mar has been stripped far too much, and this is not helping. I feel like the way we've gone about this is underhanded, disheartening, and really sneaky. Some suggestions are these decisions should be made with the students, parents, and administration giving input, and that's not happening. Second, they should be rolling out slowly over time. Stop putting the rug out from underneath the kids in our noses. You could also put changes on the website, LMTV, and not buried in long emails. We can still make a change. There is still time for other dances coming up. Another suggestion is have the freshmen and sophomores attend the dance with guests from 5:30 to 7:30. Spend 30 minutes cleaning up and clearing out the gym, and then have senior and junior come for 8 to 10 p.m. We don't need to make that many changes. You guys are already decorating, already hiring a DJ, already getting a photographer. Nothing changes except including all students with their guest of choice. This is only hurting students' mental health. Community supporting local restaurants and florists, dinner, flowers, etc. Senior kids can't even attend their own school dance and get Linn-Mar pictures with the person of their choosing. You guys could also have dances for just the junior and seniors. The underclassmen can get their turn when they become juniors and seniors. Or find a new venue or hold it outside of Linn-Mar. We as kids have lost a ton these past 18 months due to the pandemic and the choices you guys have been making. I think that Linn-Mar can do so much better. The teachers constantly tell the kids daily to confirm, adapt, and problem solve. Give them the same courtesy and get creative about it.
Okay, is there anyone else who'd like to speak tonight?
My name is Christina Bryan. I have 4 kids in this district, 1 at each grade level. I also have an in-home daycare in this district. When we relocated here 8 years ago, this was the district I wanted to be in. We made an appointment to be here when we moved from Indiana. And for the most part, I've had a lot of really happy moments. You know, the pandemic happened and that sucked, right? We've had to make some really hard choices as far as like changing locations of our dance studio because of mask mandates, and that was devastating. My children have lost a lot. I know that there's another thing coming up soon, and I know that it's going to be a tough decision. But as a family who's not going to mask my children again, we will pull them, and I will work on homeschooling or whatever it takes, and my 4 children will miss out on the future. This is our choice. Please let us continue to have it. Do not mask our kids again. We're doing fine. There's not a bunch of kids in the hospital with COVID. No one's dying in our district. Look at the numbers. The kids that are staying home are doing okay. The quarantine, they don't even need to be there that long. Their parents are like, everyone's fine. I know that it's real. I know that there's been really awful stuff that's happened. Please do not mask our children again. Thank you.
Hi,
Please state your name.
my name is Geraldine Jones, and I have a couple questions. First, I actually want to piggyback off of what these ladies said behind me. I think what really is important here is parents want to be involved in the decisions. I think that's a huge, huge factor here. When it comes to dances, when it comes to different things like that, just hearing the different things. I don't really know dances. I literally am just new to the school with a first grader. So I don't know how the high school dances go. I went to a school when I was in high school, I went from a graduating class of 38 kids to moving to Indiana the middle of my junior year, where I had 893 kids in my graduating class. That was a culture shock for me. But seeing how they did different things was so eye-opening. And what they did when it came to dances was homeschooling, or homecoming was for everybody. They had the game, following the game was homecoming. You just went in your homecoming gear, you just had music, whatever, it was in the gym, whatever. And then for junior year, they had winter formal, and then for senior year, it was for seniors, for prom. So that's just how they did it. I don't know how it's done here. I'm just saying that's what they did. So whoever knows that, by all means, do what you gotta do. Back to the communication things. Parents want to be involved. They want to be involved in the decisions that happen with their children, whether it's the masks, whether it's dances, whether it's parking, because parking is now pouring over into the subdivisions around the school, and that's going to be an issue. I already have parents contacting me. Yes, I'm running for school board, but I already have parents contacting me saying, what can you do? What can you do to be my voice on the school board? Because they're not listening. They're not responding to what we have to say. A very specific parent reached out to me and said, my neighborhood, this last week, her child woke up at 6:30 in the morning because there was kids that were throwing garbage in her yard and yelling, and they were being destructive right on her street next to her house. It woke up her, I think the baby's like 8 months old. Whatever. I'm just saying, our school is the driving is pulling over into neighborhoods, and I feel like that needs to be addressed. So I don't know the whole plan on why we started to do this trail, but I thought perhaps it would have been a better idea to see about maybe a parking garage or something like that for the school. I don't know the plans again, I don't know if that was in future or past communications or whatever, if that was a plan, but it might be a consideration. I have a ton of ideas that I would love to present to you guys, and I would love for them to be heard or acknowledged, or at least just some kind of response. But parents are not getting any communication unless they reach out. And even at that point, they're still not getting responses. That to me is concerning, because my child was a first grader this year, and I have a lot more years with this school, and I want to be here.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Okay.
My name is Lisa Edwards. I am a Linn-Mar graduate and was very proud to be a part of the school district growing up. We moved back here and chose to move into the Linn-Mar district in 2004 and wanted our kids to go to this school. My youngest is a senior this year, and I can't wait to be done. And I hate to say that out loud, but I can't wait. When I find out that there is no homecoming court for the seniors, I think, and there's been zero communication about this. As Michelle said, zero communication is going on. We have no idea these changes are being made. Who's making them? We can't get answers. So what is going on? Who's making this decision? Are we catering to a very small population that can't handle a normal American tradition that's gone on for a long time, probably since the beginning of this school? So I think we need answers on that. We need a plan B for, let's say, we don't do the homecoming court because homecoming's this weekend. Maybe we look at the seniors getting something and getting it in the spring, maybe with prom or something like they did last year. But we need answers. And, with the guests and things, I think we need to work that out. It can't be something that's just announced. And these girls, as she said, they have dresses, they have plans, they have dates. And now they can't go. They can't even go to their own school things. So I just think we need answers. And if there's a process to go through, it needs to be communicated. I think these kids need to have a voice. I think the parents need to understand what's going on and how these decisions are made. And just for moving forward, I've heard the WPA dance has changed and in March, but I have seen, there's no communication as to when it's changed or, you know, the exact date and all that's not in the schedule. So I just think, as everybody has said, these kids have been robbed of a lot, but I will say if we don't get any answers on this stuff, I can't wait to be done with this district. And I hate to say that out loud, but I went here and I was proud, and I was proud to have my kids come, but I'm to the point now where I have a senior heading out the door, and I'm ready to be done if these things are not answered or communicated to us. Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Okay. Not seeing any. Not seeing any, we will go on to informal reports. And Superintendent Bisgard will start tonight.
Yeah, several updates, all pretty much return to learn plan related. Just a couple of quick changes to our plan, smaller things that we've adjusted is the three things I want to make sure to highlight so everybody's aware. We've changed the temperature threshold from 100.1 to 100.0. That's just consistent with our other medical guidance throughout the district. We are looking to extend the restriction on visitors and volunteers at the pre-K 6 level. Our original plan said September 15th, so that will be revisited. In our current situation, do not see that improving to that state yet, so that remains in effect. And then initial plans had no COVID dashboard, did not know that would be necessary. At the time we put that together this summer, and we have since rethought that plan. COVID dashboard is back on the district website, same place it was last year, same format as well. We'll continue to update that on a weekly basis as well. So those are what we know for our return to learn plans. There are several other things that are still continuing to evolve, as we've all been dealing with the last year or so, is constant change. Last week, President Biden came out with a ruling on vaccinations requirement for staff, some other things there as well. We are still waiting for some clarifications from OSHA and from the federal government what that actually looks like, what that impact is for our district. So stay tuned. We'll continue to monitor that potential impact for us as well. And then just this afternoon, just a couple hours before this meeting started, the judge ruling came down on a lawsuit about ruling on masks mandates in schools. Right now, we're not allowed to do so, but as of this ruling, there's a temporary restraining order has been granted. I think everybody's probably aware of that in the last few hours that's come out. So state cannot ban local school district from mandating masks at this time. So we're awaiting attorney guidance before we take any further action. That's where I was at right before this board meeting as well. Still very fresh off the press, trying to understand interpretations of what that impact is for us. So I will have more updates for the board shortly, and then we'll share that with the community as well before we take any further action. So, and then the last one I'll mention, the masks on buses. In our original plans has established that we require masks on buses, and that is still in effect. That has not changed. Enforcement of that has been challenging. We will definitely admit that. We're going to send out communication to parents and families later on this week, really encouraging support and assistance with that implementation of the plan, and we will continue to ramp that piece up to make sure we can address this in a way that buses are safe places for students to travel and that we are in compliance with that law. So just several kind of things that are evolving in our plan and continue to evolve. I think the big one is the last hour or two, just the most recent ruling there, like I said as well. I know some people are probably watching tonight wondering what we're going to decide tonight, and so everybody's aware that's not part of our agenda, so there won't be any action taken on that tonight at all. That'd be a future conversation in a future board meeting with advance notice shared for everybody as well. So there's my summary, very return to learn plan heavy, but that's just kind of where we've been at lately, it seems like. So any questions from board members on any of those topics?
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Not seeing any, we'll go on to an update from the Chief Human Resource Officer, Carla Christie.
Hello.
Welcome, welcome.
Thank you. I'm just going to go over a brief staffing report of kind of where we were last year, where we're moving forward to this year, substitutes, all those things wrapped into one. So this is basically part one. So stay tuned at other meetings for part 2, 3, 4. Okay, so July 2020 through June 2021, we hired a total of 194 employees. Most of them were student support associates and educational assistants, followed by teachers. So we had quite a pretty good hiring season last year. aside from COVID. So this year, we have hired 48. Those are teachers, a nurse, and a counselor total. We had 27 at elementary, 3 intermediate, 9 middle school, and 9 high school. And 17 of those people do have a master's. So we've got some really good expertise. We did have a few issues this year. We have noticed a pretty big decrease in qualified candidates coming in to Linn-Mar. We saw a little bit of it last year, but we're seeing quite a bit of it this year, and to the point we're a little bit concerned. We did start the year with 2 open teaching vacancies, and so we do have 2 substitutes right now long-term while we look for people to fill those positions. One is in special education, which is very difficult to fill. The other one is a counselor. So we do have to ask the Board of Educational Examiners if they will allow us to have subs in a vacancy, and they did grant that for us, and they did say they're granting an awful lot of those right now. What we have open right now for classified, we have 19 student support associate positions open. 8 of those are at the high school. Custodians too, bus drivers, riders, you can see that, so on and on. So we do have quite a bit of openings and vacancies still to fill. So what I kind of wanted to go through, my HR group, just kind of from different districts, we all kind of talked about, what are your struggles? And I know this doesn't look great, but we look great compared to some other districts. So for example, Waterloo, as of August 25th, had 33 vacancies, special ed counselors, science, math, and associates. Sioux City had 83 vacancies. Of those, just for special education, there were 16 special ed teachers, 30 special ed associates. And the other vacancies don't include nutrition services, transportation, or O&M. Davenport had over 100 vacancies. 27 of those were for teachers, 43 special ed associates, 37 nutrition services, 2 custodial, 2 secretaries, 3 security. And then Cedar Rapids, next door, had approximately 78 vacancies. 10 of those were teaching, 68 were associates, 38 nutrition services, and 15 bus drivers. They did tell me that this has been the most challenging year for them to find general ed teachers, and I would not disagree with that. So what are these districts doing? They're doing long-term subs, like I talked about a little bit earlier. They are also increasing class size. And then they're realigning some of their certified staff so they can cover all of the classrooms. So it's kind of a dire situation all throughout Iowa, and I think probably nationwide as well. Oh, yes?
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
What would you attribute that to? I mean, COVID, yes, but can you drill down a little bit?
We're working on that right now.
Okay.
When we started to pull these numbers, and like I said, just in August, I got those numbers from other schools. What we're seeing, we have fewer people going into education, more people leaving education, and then we're noticing a big trend in when we do hire people, we are taking them from other school districts. And that's really not a position anybody wants to be in at this point in time. So yeah, there's probably a lot of reasons, but those are probably the main ones. So substitutes last year, our overall teacher fill rate was 88%, and our overall associate fill rate was 47%, and that was really low compared to what we typically have. I will associate a lot of that with COVID. A lot of people did not want to sub this year. We have associates who also have their teaching degree, so there were times that we had to pull them out of their classroom to actually teach our children. So that was really, really good of them. They didn't have to do that, but they did. So,
Is it better this year?
it's too soon to tell. Too soon to tell this year. That might be part 4. Okay. When I'm back up here again. All right. So speaking of COVID, I just wanted to give you all a kind of an overview of what we looked at this year. So this is teacher COVID/illness leave. So we had our COVID leave bank, and once that leave bank was depleted, then they went into illness. Okay. So just for your eyes, so we had our lowest average was December, we had 11 people out per day. Our highest was March, and that was 23 per day. And just to note, that did not include quarantine. If teachers were on quarantine and they were healthy, they were teaching from home, dual platform form from secondary. So that was quite a few. And then when you look at the associate COVID and illness leave, the lowest we have is October. We had 8. And then December, our highest was at 28. So you mix that all together, and it's all the classrooms. We struggled last year, as everyone in this room knows.
Do they still have a COVID leave bank this year?
No.
No.
Well, and I wanted to ask about that as well. As numbers go up, I have heard of people, like the newer hires, newer teachers, they don't have that bank of regular leave time.
Mm-hmm.
So they're struggling with, I don't feel well, I don't have COVID that I know, but I don't have leave for COVID, and I don't really have leave banked up, so I have to come to work. So is there a way that is there a way that we can bring some of that COVID leave back if we start seeing our numbers increase?
When we implemented it before, it was a federal mandate.
Right.
That would have to be something that's decided at the board level, if that's something that you all want to implement. We haven't run into any of that yet so far. Most of the people have had their banks. If they don't, we do our best to try to work with them and see what we can do to help them out. So,
Okay. I don't want, it doesn't do anyone any good for someone who can't take the leave to come to work and get more people sick.
Right.
It just doesn't do anyone any good. So if there's a way that we can look at that as part of our relief or whatever, I think that that's something that we need to think about as we continue into the colder months and the numbers continue to go up.
Yep. And interestingly enough, the flu we didn't hear much about the flu. In February of 2020, we were starting to put together a plan of how are we going to fight the flu, because it was rampant. And then all of a sudden, nope, that's not rampant anymore. Now we have something else. So we did not have a whole lot of the flu. And maybe we did or we didn't. I don't know, but that has not been recorded. So it's just interesting what happens. And then another area we're struggling a little bit is turnover. For student support associates, you can see that that's fairly high. We've kind of drilled down a little bit over the years. It used to be, we didn't have a lot of turnover, but recently we've had quite a bit. It's a very, very tough job. And we hear a lot, we wish you could make more money. We did change the schedule this year. The newer ones coming in are actually making a better rate. But we're still struggling, as you can see, trying to find people. They would like to see more training on student behaviors. So trying to work with Lisa a little bit on that. It's tough, especially when you can't get people in the schools and things like that. So we're still working through that. And then what was interesting is a lot of people were saying conflict is the reason they left. So I don't have the details on that. Sometimes they just fill out a little form and that's all they say. So I don't know what that's about. But we'll drill down into that and try to find out if we can.
Is that conflict among staff? Or you
I
really don't know?
No
it's just
idea.
Conflict. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
But this is the first year we've really seen that. I have not seen that before. So that was an interesting for us. Other reasons, of course, other employment, or their spouse moves or something like that. So those are some other reasons that people leave. What they do like is working with the kids still. They love working with students. They love their coworkers, so that kind of a conflict, I'm not sure where that heads. They like the community feel in the buildings, and they like their work schedule. And that used to be, the driving force, but not as much anymore.
How competitive are we for pay for student support associates?
We're probably about in the middle. We're not the highest, we're not the lowest, but we kind of are where we are.
What's the spread? Do you know?
I have no idea.
Are the higher paying districts ones in our area?
They're larger than us, for sure. Mm-hmm.
Carl, I'm glad to see that we're starting to look at why people are leaving, because change can't take place unless we're aware of, in the case of the conflicts, unless we're aware of where it's coming from.
Right.
And if it's if it's a sporadic thing or if it's an isolated thing. And I don't know the legal ramifications, if you could ask them that say, hey, if we want to improve on why people are leaving, we kind of need to know why. And if there's something there that is a continuous thing, then it needs to be addressed. And then the district can do something. So I'm glad we're starting to look at those things.
And we do exit interviews in person if we can, or over the phone, as would have been last year. But sometimes people don't want to talk about it. We'll send out just a form letter, and that's when we're kind of getting back to conflict. So a lot of times I think people are afraid to say what the conflict was or who it was with or anything like that. So that's kind of how we're drilling down into the information. We've also started this last year to kind of drill down into when people are leaving and going to a different building. You know, what are the reasons for that, and what can we do to help with that? So we're working through it. Any other questions on that slide?
Are you talking to the people that they worked with, their direct, like their administrator, or, I mean, that might be an insight into conflict as well if you're talking to who they...
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Figured you were, but I wanted to ask the question.
So we have a few challenges in front of us. One is obviously recruiting and hiring and retaining student support associates. I hate to say that we're not alone, but we're definitely not alone in that area. Special education teachers and other specialty teachers, we're really going to have to barrel down. They're just, you hate to take from other school districts, but that's kind of where we're seeing a trend. Same with us. I mean, it's give and take. We need to increase our substitute fill rate this year. Kind of working on kind of a strategy on how to work with, for example, last year when we had subs, typically for long-term subs, they have to work so many days consecutively to get a bump in pay. Last year was crazy, and so we let them have breaks in between. So if it was, for example, if it was 11 days sporadically, then you would still get that bump. So I think that helped a little bit, so we're still looking into some of those things. We're looking into possibly hiring bonuses or referral bonuses or something to try to get some people in the door. I know we're not alone. I know private industry is having issues as well. So we're doing our best, drilling down and seeing what we can do. We also need to work a little closer with the Board of Educational Examiners. They have really, really high standards, which is awesome. But a lot of times if we have somebody coming from out of state, they tend to have to take certain classes, then they have to pay for those to come to Iowa. So it's just been a little frustrating for us to try to get people from out of state if they don't have exactly what they want. So that will be in a different conversation with you guys at some point. So those are kind of what we've got going on right now. Yep.
Yeah. With a substitute pay rate, is that the same throughout the whole metro area?
Yes and no. So maybe. We have the same base rate. Okay, so subs make the same amount per hour or per day through the metro area. This year we talked a little bit about, if you want to do a bonus or you want to do something like that, you can. So we've kind of looked at that. I think what we're doing with our consecutive versus sporadic days, I think that's helped quite a bit. If you look at the numbers, it's probably pretty good. For example, I think one district is doing, if you sub for a certain amount of time and a certain amount in each quarter, then you can get like a day paid. So that's a chunk, but ours is as you go.
Because I know that at one time, it was $112 a day for subs, when Council Bluffs was $134, $135. And so there is, a change there, and I didn't know. And the reason why I asked the question, I was concerned about the metro area. If there's a set thing that started, I realized tonight that you're doing some other things to help with that. But, depending on how this COVID variant works, we're going to need to keep those substitutes around, so.
Yep.
Have we looked at hiring permanent subs?
We have not gone to that yet. I know Cedar Rapids has done that, but we have not done that yet. Any other questions? All right, thanks.
Thank you, Carla.
Thanks, Carla.
Yep.
Yep. Next, we move on to the Policy Committee report. How do you all want to handle it?
I think we said I would do the first run-through for the summary of the Policy Committee meeting, and then others would jump in as well. We had a very heavy Policy Committee agenda. We have our usual policies we always review every 3 years. We did those. Those parts are pretty minimal. There's actually a lot of policy changes that came from IASB recommendations, strictly directly impacted from the last legislative session. So that was the vast majority of our agenda and kind of a wide variety of topics. So some of the key highlights in there, I guess I would say, there were several legal interpretations and changes on public participation in board meetings. You'll know some changes in our procedures for that, which was suggested from IASB. The new state standards and evaluation procedures for administrators, which we've talked about in the past. This just changes our policy to match up to those new procedures and laws that are there. Open enrollment did have several changes as well for this school year, so which we've been following, but now our policies will now match that as well. And then the last two I'll just kind of highlight. There's use of recording devices on school grounds, some new laws and new interpretations from IASB there, which gave us some clarity as well. So those are some things keep changing, evolving on the technology front, so that was a good update for us on that front. And the last one, there were several law interpretations on student and staff expression that are now updated in our policy as well. So there's kind of the 1-minute version from an hour-long discussion on all the other policy changes that we had, and I'll leave open the door for the others that were there last week to highlight any other key areas.
Karen, did you want to add anything?
I don't have anything to add. Okay. I do have all of my notes if anybody has questions. That was why I was flipping through my papers, not because I had anything to add.
Okay.
It was a good
The
synopsis.
only thing I got to say is that this probably has been the longest policy meeting I've ever been to, simply because of the changes, but the changes are coming from the state. And, you know, they're trying to keep up with everything with what's going on with our students and our staff. And everything's been checked over legally, and what we can do and what we can do in the changes. And the nice thing about it, it deals through the good things that solidifies what we can do with students and staff, and gives some parameters on what we can do and can't do. And I think that benefits everybody in the district.
Okay.
That clarified.
Have questions for our policy people?
I have a few.
Okay.
Did you?
No, I looked at it there.
Okay. So were all of the policy changes from ISB, or were any of them our decisions?
I think there were a couple of little ones on the 700 series that were just some changes in some wording, but I think that was probably 1 or 2 as all the rest were IASB recommendations or new mandated policies.
Okay. So like the changes in the section that describes how we can, like the board's jurisdiction, that was all from IASB?
Yeah, that was actually the new law that was implemented, which was kind of interesting because it really emphasized the academic portion of board responsibility, which everybody always thought, well, that's kind of the board's responsibility anyway, and it is. It just kind of doubled down on that statement. So
I didn't have any problems with what it said. I just wanted to clarify where it came from.
Yep.
I did have a question about, I know, Kara, page 15, since you're flipping over there.
These
so
are
you know.
just in order of policy numbers, so.
It's the student expression section. Okay. I am just curious if we have examples of the certain qualifying circumstances in which student speech may require administrative regulation. Like, I understand that we have to protect and you know, the part about reasonably anticipating causing disruption. If they're already causing disruption, then we absolutely have to squash that. But I would like clarification on what we would anticipate, reasonably anticipating causing disruption to be.
because I believe in freedom of speech. I don't believe in freedom of speech without consequence, but I want to be careful what we're limiting our students from saying. So I just would like some examples or clarification on what that new wording means. I'm not against it, I just want to understand it. And then my other question, I'm sorry, I'm going through my notes. This isn't really policy, it's just more of a question, interest, really. The new law about the Pledge of Allegiance, which I'm totally fine with, do we explain to students what it means when we teach them how to say it and have them say it every day? Because I think it's important for students to understand what they're reciting, not just recite it and not have any idea what they're saying. So maybe at the beginning of every year, I just wonder how we talk about the Pledge of Allegiance with students, and if we're teaching them what it means when they say those words and when they stand up and all of that.
Actually know what it is they're reciting, you mean, every day? Yeah, I don't know if that's something we've done consistently across the board. I know it's done in pockets of individuals, but district-wide probably has not been a clear focus on what that should look like, and so we can certainly look at.
Okay, I think that we should look at that, because if we're administering, we're not requiring, but especially at the younger grades.
I would speak to that. Yes, it's been a while since I've been in the classroom, but we did talk about that when they were younger. And we talked about what they thought it meant and what it was intended. You know, read books, that kind of thing to help explain.
I think that would be
off of our whatever we believed it was what was.
Yeah, and I don't want personal interpretation. I just think that, you know, it's the pledge, it's the flag. It would be nice to maybe open the school year with, hey, we're going to do this in the mornings, and this is why we're doing it, and this is what it means. Not forcing anyone, of course, but I just think that that's an important part of taking the pledge or saying the pledge, is knowing what you're saying.
Well, you know, little ones, they say a different word sometimes for some.
Oh, I know.
It's creative, and then you have to explain, okay, what you're saying means this, and what we're intending you to say is this. So, you know, it is, and and sometimes the little ones get it right away, and some look at you like, hello, you know. So, I mean, I think it's something that's discussed over time. At least it was.
Yeah, it's just been sporadic, and something we can look at to see if there's a more systematic way to
I think it would be
address that certain grade level.
So that's my comment. Not that it needs to be in policy, but that's just. And then just my last question: the legislative page program. So do students basically just miss third quarter when they participate in that, or do they just go on certain days? How does that program work?
That's a great question. They miss a good chunk of time on the school year. So I don't know if it's the third quarter, because last year they went into the fourth quarter. As a piece of that too. So yeah, when they're there, they're there. That's pretty much it's not a full-time commitment, a very close to full-time commitment.
I think it's a great opportunity. I just asked the question because it's only worth half a credit, and if they're missing a whole quarter.
Yeah, what do they do? I mean, are they getting kind of some assignments from their teachers? Okay. No.
Oh,
I know
for the credit.
I know they do.
Typically, they've been students that have enough credits already, so it's not hurting them on a graduation rate. But it's so I need to follow up with Jeff and see kind of what the specifics of that look like. We had one last year, but I don't know the exact schedule that she ended up running.
I just was wondering, it's like half a credit, and I know how long the session is, so I was just wondering how that works with.
Yep.
And what that credit
says the minimum.
Toward.
We can choose to do more.
So. I just was curious about the credits they would normally be getting during that time if they're spending all that time in Des Moines as well. But I like the program. I was just curious about how it works. Those are my questions about policies. So, thank you.
Okay. Anything else? All right, we will move on. Next was the Marion City Council report.
Yeah, I don't know if it's just my dynamic personality or what, but last time I signed up and I went, the doors were closed because it was eat, drink, and be Marion, and I couldn't find any door that was open. This time, it turns out Thursday they decided to close down all the to be able to be present there, so you had to go with online, and you know how good I am at that. So with that in mind, They did sign an approval to complete paving by Boulder Peak, which is gonna be really nice. And these all just pertain to.
When you say that, are you talking the rest of the road down to Highway 13, or what are they talking?
I was not
Tim's
clear.
really excited about that idea.
Well, yeah, I understand, because it does make sense, but I can only assume there wasn't an explanation that I could give you a true answer.
All right, thanks, Clark.
The second thing is they waived objections to the annexation of property south of Echo Hill Road and east of C Avenue into the city of Cedar Rapids. They,
That's a Scoveland division, I think.
Yep.
yeah.
Oh, a new division, okay.
They approved approval of 4 plots of residential in the Linn-Mar district. It's the Downing Farms, and it's the final plot, so that they can approve, and there's only 4 in there. And then they received and filed a TAC regarding request to look at an easier pedestrian access to Toppy Park, which is, on 31st. And currently there's no sidewalk, but they want to extend it from 8th Avenue to 25th Avenue and from McGowan Boulevard to 23rd Avenue. So you would think with the farmer's market in the summer and stuff like that, that there's a lot of ways that they could walk there and be beneficial, but also with our students, they're going to come back from Wilkins and then they can cut through there, but if you have a sidewalk, obviously it is much better for the students and parents of those children that are walking in that direction. So I think that's good. I would like to interject, I would like them to look again at a sidewalk on Indian Creek Road. There's a lot of traffic there and not a whole lot of sidewalk. None, to get there, just for kids to be safe. So that would be it.
Thank you so much. Okay, on to unfinished business. We have 601.
I make a motion to approve the resolutions granting easement to the city of Marion for the construction of the Indian Creek Trail project.
Second.
Are there any other questions about it? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. 602.
Make a motion to accept the Excelsior Middle School roof replacement project as complete and authorize final payment to Jim Geis Commercial Roofing in the amount of $8,161.10.
Okay. Any questions there? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. 603.
Make a motion to accept the Transportation Operations and Maintenance Roof Replacement Project as complete and authorize final payment to Septagon Construction in the amount of $4,809.46.
Is there a second? Okay, Barry, thank you. Okay, questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. 604.
I move to accept the Bowman Woods fire alarm upgrade as complete and authorize final payment to High Tech Communications in the amount of $2,051.85.
Okay. So again, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. New business,
Motion.
overnight trip request.
Motion to approve the overnight trip request for future business leaders of American students to attend state conference, leadership conference in Des Moines from October 3rd through the 4th.
Okay. Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed? Passes.
I move to approve.
Go for it.
To approve the first reading of the policy recommendations as presented in Exhibit 702.1.
Second.
Thank you both. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we got that taken care of. On to 703, and Shannon will give a short discussion about early separation.
I'll kind of kick the conversation off with the board tonight about early separation. About every year this time we have this conversation. by board policy, if we decide to offer early separation, teachers have till October 12th to notify the board of their interest in taking advantage of that opportunity. So we have to have this conversation before that to give them plenty of notice, obviously, if we choose to do so. Obviously, it's unique times for us financially, staffing-wise, as you heard from Carla. Lots of things for us to consider in making this decision. We're also trying to project what it's going to look like by the end of this school year for lots of different reasons as well. So right now, my recommendation to the board, we can have a conversation about this, is I would recommend that we not offer early separation for our certified staff for this school year. Two factors we look at in making that decision. One is from an HR perspective. You heard Carla's update tonight. We don't expect that to get much better next year or so, potentially get worse. Hopefully that's not the case, but we will be careful that we don't incentivize people to leave and then we leave ourselves shorthanded as well. So, and then the second piece is financially. Obviously there's we want it to be a benefit to the district and a benefit to the individual. In our current situation, you'll hear from JT at our next board meeting, kind of an end of the year from 2021 fiscal year update as well. We're going to finish the year in a pretty good spot this year, it looks like, which is encouraging. That's what we like to see. A lot of that is, though, directly contingent upon ESSER funding we've received and will receive going forward as well. So that helps to put us in a good spot temporarily. As you know, those funds are short-term, so we'll receive them last year, this year, and then the following year after that too. So it leaves us in a short-term benefit, but not a long-term promise we can kind of commit to. So now, I know teachers like to have a chance to plan, prepare. It's a big decision for them as far as retiring it goes. So one thing we have talked about, and I'd like to throw out to the board for conversation as well, if we don't offer it this year, we'd like to kind of make a statement of intent to offer it the following year. So it would not be for the 21-22 school year, but for the 22-23 school year. We look at offering early separation then. The difference then, we'll have a little bit better idea HR-wise where things stand, but even more bigger picture for us financially, that will be near the end of the ESSER funds at that time period. So we anticipate the financial need for us to be there to offer this for the district will be better than it is currently, and definitely more of a timing issue for us at that point. Obviously, anytime you say the word intent, some people are going to take that as gospel, and that's what it has to be, and that's a promise, that's a guarantee. So we'll have to make sure that if we do decide to go that route, we don't make that, we'll make that very clear to everybody that it's our intent and not necessarily a final decision by any means. But it does help people to plan if they're making decisions this year. Maybe that makes a decision they stay one more year or not at that time. So I threw a lot at you as far as this year's decision, but then also looking ahead to the following year. And then open up the conversation, questions, thoughts you have on this topic.
So I know there's no hard and fast rule, and that it's brought every year. I don't think since I've been on the board we've offered it. So I would say, is the last time we offered it 3 years ago?
I believe so.
And then prior to that, it was it every other year?
Every other year. But that's how it worked out. It wasn't stated it had to be.
Right, I understand that there's
That's how it often worked out.
Okay. I understand the financial aspects and the HR aspects. From the HR perspective, I don't think that there's going to be an influx in education graduates in a year compared to where it is now. I don't think that that's going to get fixed in a year to impact this. So I don't feel entirely comfortable not skipping another year, but I'm not set in that yet. That's just where I'm feeling right now. So that's all I wanted to say.
Wait, I'm sorry. You said you're not comfortable and
I'm not entirely sold on not offering it this year. I don't.
Oh, okay.
Skipping another year, I don't know if I totally agree with that yet. So I know we're not voting on anything, so I'm just saying that's where I'm at right now, because I don't know if I 100% agree with that.
And I'm looking at it from the standpoint, going from what Carla said, also as we go over this and talk to JT and get the numbers and stuff. Like Britt said, we didn't offer it last year, but as people leave our system, and well, to be quite honest, the anger that we didn't offer it last year and we couldn't, and we all voted for that. My problem is with this huge, vast groups of high schools that new teachers or teachers that want to move, if the numbers are going down, if they knew like that there was this type of incentive, that we could possibly draw some of those that are retiring, the new and most updated and progressive teachers for the future, that would be an incentive to say, okay, this is what they're offering, but we have this, you know, we'd like to, we've interviewed you, we want you to be at Linn-Mar. Just something to kind of think about as we prepare for that time.
I guess to add to what Britt said is the fact that we're not going to offer it this year and we have a letter of intent next year. Does that mean that we could have a bigger number next year because of that? Is that really what that means?
Potentially, yes.
Yeah. So basically, like I think you're saying is the influx is not going to fix our shortage. I'm not pro either way. I'm just asking the question. That we could have a larger number for 22, 23 because of it. Well, I'm sure we'll discuss it in the finance meeting next week, correct?
Yeah, that's a good point. We could have more positions to fill in 2 years than instead of spreading it over 2 years, we'd all have it in one. There's a possibility, so.
Is that information that you can get for us? Like how many people are eligible this year and then how many people would be eligible next year? That would help quite a bit. Because if it.
Yeah, Carl,
Yeah.
That's why we're opening the conversation now, knowing that finance audit coming up next time and JT's presentation on finance next board meeting as well. Those will be timely topics for us to look at. I just want to be very transparent though about where we are right now. Yeah, I agree with you. I don't see the HR perspective getting much better in the next year or two, or maybe it'll be very lucky if that's the case down the road. But a little bit of kicking the can down the road on that issue after we roll the dice there as well. Yeah, we definitely get the numbers as far as the exact number of people that are eligible. Which ones would choose to do it then? That's no idea until after the fact. But clearly, there's interest. There's no doubt about that.
Well, and part of why we didn't last year was because of the duration. We had no idea what kind of money we were going to have. And we did have a huge increase in the fund where we pay for insurance. And so it was like, we don't have a clue. We can't guarantee that we'd have the money for everything. So we really couldn't do it last year.
Oh, I totally agree
So,
with the decision last year.
hopefully-
I mean,
yeah.
last
Going
year was
forward.
just this
Yeah.
giant question mark. So I'm not questioning why we didn't last
No.
year. I agreed with it and I voted for
Yeah.
it. I'm just not sold on doing it again this year
Okay.
yet.
And that's important. That's why we need some more
Yeah.
information. Tim, did you have something to say?
Yeah, and I agree with what's been said, I guess, and I agree with you, Shannon, that if we use the word intent, we're basically, I think most people will hear, we are guaranteeing that
Yeah,
we're doing
no,
it next year.
that's
So I'm not sure which way I'm leaning either. I just, but I would, that word makes me a little nervous.
If we
as
would
you
make
said.
that commitment, we would have to really communicate that carefully with everybody so they know that. And I have had that from teachers who said, the sooner we can know the plan, the better. They in the past, having it for several years, it fell every other year so they could somewhat plan accordingly. By not having it on a consistent basis, that does make it harder for them to make that decision. But they also understand it's hard for us to make that long-term commitment with everything changes so quickly too. So,
Well, and the clarity of the word intent. I mean, it really needs to be, what are you really saying? Because people will take it as gospel. So, I mean, that's just what I've heard and seen many times.
I know I don't think it can be public knowledge, but when you get the information about how many positions we're looking at, it would be helpful to know how many of those are in those tough to fill categories and how many are not.
Good idea.
Because I think, the
Good
more
idea.
information to help us make this decision, I don't want to make things difficult for us in filling positions, but I also don't want to keep pushing something out that maybe some staff deserve right now and
Absolutely.
have planned for. And
Absolutely.
so,
Good plan. I think we've got some good information that we need, and then we can make a more informed decision. So, anything else? All right, so let's move on to 704.
I move to approve the open enrollment request as presented.
second.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Consent agenda.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda with the walk-in exhibit.
Second.
Okay. Anyone have something to say? I see there's a resignation of of Heidi. She was a reading teacher, and I worked with her. She's an amazing lady, and we are losing a great teacher there. And so I wish her well. And there was retirement, I believe, along the way here. Yes. Counselor Secretary, Carla Ness, so I wish her well. Other comments, questions about any of the contracts or anything? Okay, not seeing any. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? So that passes. Get that. Okay, next we have board communications and calendar. As we mentioned earlier in our discussions, homecoming is the end of this week. It says on here the 15th is the parade, 5:15, 6:15 powder puff game, and the 17th is the actual football game. So that's coming up. So that's always a fun thing to do. And one thing I'd like to make the board aware of, the election, of course, is November 2nd for board. And then on Wednesday, the 10th, those who will be sworn in, that will be our organizational meeting. And shortly after that, the next week, the IASB annual conferences, and it's a 2-day thing in Des Moines. So it's something that those of you who are on the board can be thinking about. Do you want to be a part of it or not? Do you want to go 1 day, 2 days? And the only thing I'm saying is, look at things. If you haven't seen it, it's probably online. I've got a book about it if you need it, any of that kind of thing. But I would love for you to be very committed if you decide to go, to attend the things that are available and pick from them, and we can spread out and get lots of information. So, is there anything else anyone would like to share?
Did I miss something, or did we have a board visit this week?
Yeah, we are postponing that one.
It was postponed. Okay.
Yeah.
Because it was to
Correct.
an elementary, and we decided since we're not going to K-6, we would wait on that.
Take that one off your calendar.
Yeah, okay. Is there anything else? Anybody have questions, concern? Okay, so not seeing any.
To adjourn.
Thank you, Barry. Second, okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned at 6:07.